Well, hello everyone. This is Magnetic Conversations, and today again, as soon as you see that I'm speaking English, you understand that I have an international guest here, and we have here Siim Land, who is a biohacker and a longevity expert, and inspiring personality, which you will meet actually in Lithuania by the end of this month at the Sleep Fest. So, hey Sim, how are you?
Yeah, glad to be here.
So, where are you from exactly? Is it some Scandinavian country, correct?
I'm in Estonia.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so you're more the Baltics, not than the Scandinavia, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So let's start with the coffee. How many coffees do you have per day?
I usually have like 2 cups and yeah, maybe 1 cup of green tea as well. So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of the sweet spot. One in the morning, pretty after waking up in 1 hour after waking up, and the second one around like 10 or 11 a.m.
Mm-hmm. And is this the healthy way to have your coffee? Why I'm asking, because I've heard and I've read so many different stories about demonizing the coffee, then justifying the coffee, then maybe going towards the decaf coffee. So, what's the truth, according to you, regarding coffee in terms of longevity and living a healthy and happy life?
Yeah, so coffee does get like some sort of a bad rap that it raises blood pressure and can increase the risk of heart disease or something like that. But based on the research, it's the opposite. That moderate coffee consumption, somewhere between like 2 to 3 cups a day, is actually linked to a much lower risk of all-cause mortality, Alzheimer's, liver cancer, heart disease, and even hypertension as well. So people who typically consume more or moderate amounts of coffee actually have slightly lower risk of blood pressure than no consumption. And people tend to say that these are based on a lot of these observational studies, which is true, and there can be a lot of factors that explain this. So at least in like nutritional studies, nutritional observational studies, a lot of the healthy foods are typically grouped together with other healthy lifestyle activities like exercise and maintaining a normal body weight and those kind of things. So they would say that it's actually the exercise and just not being overweight that in nutrition mediates the health benefits of vegetables or something else like that. But with coffee, I don't think that it's really the case because first of all, not a lot of people think that coffee is healthy. So like if you are into exercise and healthy lifestyle, then you might be more likely to actually, consume teas or matcha or something like that rather
Yeah.
than coffee. And secondly, a lot of unhealthy lifestyle is also paired with coffee consumption, so like smoking and alcohol consumption.
Mhm.
So, I think a lot of smokers, I would say that, like 99% of smokers also drink coffee. So,
It's like a package, right? Like,
yeah, so it's not like it doesn't appear that it's mediated by the health user bias because usually healthy people don't think that coffee is healthy and unhealthy people tend to drink more coffee more
mm,
like frequently. So yeah, there's a lot of like mechanistic reasons for that. There's like these polyphenolic compounds in coffee that have like anti-inflammatory effects on the body and lipid regulating effects and blood sugar regulating effects. And with blood pressure, there's this effect that when you consume caffeine on a regular basis, then your body like adapts to it and it doesn't cause acute
mm,
rises in blood pressure. Whereas if you, yeah, like drink coffee once a week, for example, then every time you consume it, your blood pressure will respond and you will
exactly.
increase the blood pressure because of that. So there's that aspect to it, which
Mhm.
explains the reduction in hypertension risk, which is, somewhat surprising for me as well, but, it's actually quite a known phenomenon.
I see. What do you think, like from a personal point of view? Because I know you know a lot of information and you've done a lot of research yourself on different researches. But I've been discussing with my girlfriends the other week, and like, what's the key to longevity? Because all want to live long, but then if I had to decide if I want to be healthy, maybe could accept the fact of living shorter if I have a quality life. So we're discussing like, is it food? Is it nutrition? Is it sleep? Is it relationships? Is it I don't know, fulfillment of your career ambitions? Is it
Mm.
having a child if you want one? What's the whole picture of living a full and healthy and long life? What's the secret ingredient or the whole package?
Yeah, well, it's kind of all of them to a certain
Yeah.
extent. Like, obviously exercise is known to be good for your health, and people who exercise tend to live a little bit longer than people who don't. And
Okay.
with diet, like a healthy eating pattern typically results in greater life expectancy than this standard westernized eating
Mm-hmm.
pattern. And loneliness is typically associated with increased risk of mortality and heart disease, etc. So you need
Mm-hmm.
to kind of have everything covered to like a reasonable degree. And but it's also like, too much exercise might be bad for you,
Mm-hmm.
and too many supplements, we don't know the data about that.
Mm.
And with like a diet perspective as well, we don't have, okay, this is the perfect diet. So there's, you just need to kind of cover your bases on all of these fronts, like diet, exercise, sleep,
Yeah.
stress, and socializing, etc. But what is the key to living a long time? Then it really comes down to, like, the average life expectancy in the world is something like 73 years. In some countries it's higher, like in South Korea or Japan, it's like in the 80s, and in other countries it's lower.
Mm.
In most of Europe, it's somewhere in the high 70s and low 80s. But so to live longer, you need to avoid the things that shorten your lifespan and kill most people. So what are the main causes of death in the developed countries? It's, heart disease,
Yeah.
cancer, Alzheimer's, kidney disease, and diabetes. So to live to like the age of a 90, you need to make sure you don't die in your 80s, and then you need
That
to make
makes
sure you don't
sense.
die in your 70s, 60s, and you can go to the lowest number possible with that. And that comes down to like mostly preventive
Mm.
health. So trying to prevent heart disease, trying to prevent diabetes, trying to prevent Alzheimer's. With certain of these diseases, we don't have a clear understanding or answer. So like cancer is somewhat still of a mystery,
Mm.
and Alzheimer's as well. We don't have any like treatment for that. But at least with some of these other chronic diseases like heart disease, our understanding of heart disease has improved a lot over the last 40, 50 years, and
Yeah.
that the rates of death from heart disease have also dropped significantly. It's still the number one killer, but it has dropped significantly. And the diabetes and the kidney disease are also like manageable. At least
Yeah.
like we know what's the kind of practical steps you need to
Mm.
do. So yeah, preventing these chronic diseases with lifestyle mostly, and what are those lifestyle components? It's again like maintaining normal body weight, maintaining normal blood pressure,
Yeah.
tracking your blood markers. I think is if you're like really interested in knowing about your health and doing actionable steps to prevent getting these chronic diseases, then tracking your blood markers at least like once a year or
Mm.
something like that is worthwhile, because then you can see, are you heading in some direction? So diabetes is diagnosed with a certain level of blood sugar levels, and the average blood sugar level of this hemoglobin A1C. But it's not like, one day you just wake up and then you have like high blood sugar levels. It's like, it slowly creeps up over the course of, years even.
Yeah, I
And if
understand.
you see that, okay, I'm out of the normal range, I'm heading towards pre-diabetes, then you have plenty of time to like reverse the course. But the key aspect is tracking, and a lot of people don't track, which is why
That's so
they,
true.
might get surprised that, hey, the doctor tells they have kidney disease or diabetes when they're 50 years old. But if you had tracked it already in your 30s, then you would have been
Imagine.
able to reduce it.
Because this is exactly what is about people. I don't know what about Estonia, but at least here in Lithuania, it's like, if you're not sick, you're all right. So you do not track your health most commonly. I do not say everybody, but like, and then we just, when the your health is already cracked, then you go and you already have the circumstance and the result and the problem and have to solve it like really in a complicated way. But where in all this whole package stands the mindset? Because I do believe that if you're more positive, if you're, I don't know, enjoying your day, if you're fulfilled in your professional life and relationship, I do believe that it does have a lot of influence in your quality of your life. So perhaps equals longevity of your life, or no? Apart the physical body health. That's what,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Like mental health is also good for longevity, and people with better mental health also typically live longer.
Mm,
And there might be some causal relationship there that having good mental health, obviously does have positive effects on your physical health as well. Like it lowers your heart rate and lowers blood pressure and uh, prevents being stressed, etc.
mm-hmm.
And yeah, so it's hard to say like is it chicken or the egg, but it is true that yeah, if you're like in physical good health but your mental health suffers,
Yeah.
then that's not like the best solution.
Mm. What do you think is a better way, or if there is an answer to this question? But there are people who tend to push themselves into something like, I don't know, more complicated exercise, or like the diet of the food which is healthy, but they don't like the flavor, or like all these things. And there's a group of people which I belong to as well. Like I'm more like into pleasurable things. Like I want to enjoy it. I want to feel pleasure. I want it to be tasty. I want it to be pleasant in my body, in my mind. So, but in terms of longevity and your topic, is there an answer? Which is the better way? I don't want to compete, but I just want to know, which is the
Mm.
better way to push a
Mhm.
bit or just stay in your peace and comfort?
Right. Yeah, well, first I think that it might matter which sex are you.
It
For
does.
women, so for women, like it appears that being fit and metabolically healthy and normal, like in good body composition, matters much less than it does for men.
Hmm.
So, for example, with body fat percentage, there's not a lot of difference between, 20% body fat and 35% body fat and risk of mortality. So that can be like pretty lean and slightly overweight. So there's almost like no difference in women. But for men, it's almost like linear that anything above 15% is already linked to higher risk, and being below 15% is associated with a reduction in risk. So as a man, it appears that you might have to, if you want to live longer, then you have to be like fit, lean, and healthy metabolically. Whereas for women, you can be even slightly overweight and not exercise and still live quite a long
Well,
time. And, 90% of the centenarians are female, so there's only like one male centenarian for the one for nine female ones,
I'm
and
sorry, I'm laughing, but there's this joke about, why women like live longer. So that's why I'm laughing. I'm sorry.
right. Yeah, so like I think women have some of these hormonal differences that
Mm.
kind of postpone the development of heart disease specifically. So men just get heart disease much sooner, and
Mhm.
women have a higher, like as a percentage, women have more like Alzheimer's, but that's because most men die before they get Alzheimer's because Alzheimer's, the average age of diagnosis for Alzheimer's is like late 70s and early
Yeah.
80s. But for
Yeah.
heart disease, it's like mid 60s. So they get heart disease first
Mhm.
before they get Alzheimer's. And estrogen has, a lot of cardioprotective and neuroprotective effects. And after menopause is where the risk of osteoporosis and heart disease for women starts to increase. So they have like a few decades where the risk is very low because of estrogen. And heart disease is a game of decades of how much like this atherosclerosis, atherosclerotic burden you experience over the course of decades. So if smoke and drink alcohol and you're overweight, then you accelerate it. But it's still like a theory, but it might be that estrogen for women gives like a few decades of like a not a head start, but like a head start in the opposite way that they delay heart
Mhm.
disease for a few decades with that.
Mhm.
Uh, yeah, but pleasure and like happiness and enjoyment, then you don't need to be like a super athlete
Mhm.
to live longer. All the centenarians, they're not really exercising that much. Uh,
Mhm.
but granted that they live so long because of genetics mostly, that like they don't have any special lifestyle habits. They
Mhm.
eat the same diet as everyone else. they don't exercise, they kind of live a very relaxed lifestyle,
Hmm.
but they are the ones who live to 100. So what's the reason? Like it probably has to do with like genetic components that some genes reduce the risk of Alzheimer's and cancer and heart disease.
Hmm.
So you still want to like hedge your bets uh, by being slightly fitter than average and metabolically healthy and like normal weight. But but there's no evidence that the more you do, the more stricter your diet and
Yeah, the longer you live.
yeah, there's no evidence for that, and it might be even like at some point it's actually harmful.
Exactly,
So
especially if you're like, like pushing and working out and hating it. Imagine that, like hating that, but doing
right,
that. So you're miserable inside your, head and your heart. So that could be a problem at the end of the day. But what
for
about
sure.
the age? You mentioned different age groups and like, is there such a thing like you should start the latest at your, I don't know, late 30s or 40s, start taking care of yourself and like doing lifting weights and like, I don't know, sleeping more, da, 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 or there's no such time as start, not later than your 50s? Is there some, time gap where you should start and then
Mm.
it's a guarantee or if there's any?
Yeah, like generally you can start at any age, and there are certain things that matter more at different ages. So, for example, when it comes to muscle mass and bone density, then low bone density and low muscle mass are risk factors for all-cause mortality. But it only starts to matter after the age of like 60 and especially after the age of 70 and 80. So if you never lifted weights in your life until the age of like 50 or 40, then you're still good in that sense. That
Okay. Yeah.
that's a still time where you can build adequate muscle reserve and bone density. And but when it comes to like metabolic health, then you would want to maintain normal metabolic health and normal body composition all throughout your life because yeah, any like elevation in like so any aspect of diabetes and any aspect of hypertension and any aspect of obesity tends to increase the risk of mortality across all age groups. And there could be that, yeah, like, so there is for sure the true that the earlier you get diabetes and the earlier you get hypertension, then the shorter your life expectancy is going to be
Yeah.
because you like accumulate more years under the effects of diabetes and obesity. So it's the same with smoking. The earlier you start to smoke, the longer you do it, and the more you do it, then the shorter the life expectancy is because your body is experiencing more of the smoking.
Yeah.
So yeah, at an early age, you want to for sure just maintain normal body composition and normal metabolic health, like normal blood sugar and normal inflammation, those kind of things. Sleep, like normally, I think that's beneficial across all ages. And with exercise, yeah, like you would benefit from exercise across all age because exercise does slow down the biological aging and builds up like a good reserve a good reserve of muscle mass and bone density that would benefit you from
Yeah.
later years.
You know what interesting I've noticed that imagine, let's say me, right? Like in my, I don't know, 20s, I would be like maybe doing some aerobics. In my 30s, maybe some weights. Now I'm 40 and I'm more like I would go for more yoga and relaxing and stretching. But then I read all these articles and watch reels like from people like you and like, no, 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 do your weights, go to the gym, da, 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 da. And like usually it's the opposite. Like with age, you would like naturally lean towards like, stretching and relaxing and da, da,
Mm.
da. But then that's the time. And you said more or less the same. Like this is where you should start, doing your weights and your muscle mass growth, right?
Yeah, like you can get away with not lifting weights probably until the age of like
Yeah.
50, 60.
But then you have to do it.
Then you should definitely do it because
Yeah.
it's gonna be even hard. So like the later you start, the harder the progress is going to
Exactly.
be. Um, but if you start at any age, you will see still a lot of improvement. Even if you start in your like 90s, they can see like
It's still worth it because
yeah,
at some point, start to think, it's too late. So never mind. So please say that is not true.
mm,
You
yeah,
agree?
Yeah.
I have one question about the intermittent fasting. So basically, it's a really trending thing, and I've heard different opinions. But the longevity and intermittent fasting, is there a link? And would you give me a brief overview of how do you think women and men should do the intermittent fasting, if they should, to help prolong their quality life?
Yeah. So intermittent fasting is beneficial for some things. It doesn't appear to have like any direct effects on like lifespan or longevity. Um, it's mostly like a tool for weight loss and maintaining normal body weight.
Yeah.
So, if you lose weight, then all of your blood markers will improve, typically up to a certain point. And intermittent fasting helps you to like have a normal calorie intake that prevents you from gaining weight. So that a lot of people just subconsciously undereat calories as well when they're doing intermittent fasting, and then their health improves because of that. But they could have achieved that with like a regular 3 meals a day as well. It's just, okay, which one you prefer? Like, do you prefer to do some sort of intermittent fasting, or do you prefer the regular breakfast, lunch, and dinner? So at the end of the day, what matters is the calorie intake, and it doesn't matter if you have it across 6 meals or one meal. If
Okay.
you consume more calories than your body needs, then you're gonna store some weight.
Okay. And because now I see that different people are trying this, like different, how to say, combinations of intermittent fasting. And I see on some, I see amazing results. And on some, I see also like the opposite. Like, for example, women lose their menstrual cycle, or for example,
Mm.
they get dizzy and angry. So could it be like it's very personal and then it's hard to say if it's good for everybody or no?
Yeah, I mean, there is risks with that, like, but the menstrual cycle thing, for example, that can happen on like any diet if you're like very low calorie. So if you
Oh,
lose a lot of weight, then you will have like problems with hormones, especially women. So it's not exclusive to intermittent fasting. And the same with like muscle loss, like you can lose muscle on any diet if
mm,
you're like in a calorie deficit. So for sure, there's like individual preferences, and some people just find it very difficult to eat enough calories in a certain window, which is why they might lose too much weight, or they feel tired, or they lose muscle. So
I see.
that's kind of it's for sure like a individual preference thing, like which way of eating you prefer.
I see. I have one question regarding parenthood, because I was wondering, like some people tend to have, kids in like the early 20s. And for example, my parents had me like when they're like 23. I had my kids like I was almost 30-ish. And I have friends who have kids when they're 45. Is there any link with that, like longevity and the later you have kids?
Mhm.
Because the menopausal gets delayed if you have kids later-ish. But then again, what's your point of view on that? Is there any link?
Yeah, there is research that women who have children later have longer life expectancy.
I see.
Um, yeah, and the thing is that it's also like, okay, is it because of having children later, or is it because if you're able to have children in your 40s, you're just healthier?
Yeah.
Like healthier people
Mm.
might just live longer. So even if you don't have children in your 40s, but you're otherwise very healthy and with a lower biological age because of being healthy, then that could be the reason. So we don't know necessarily what it is. So having menopause later is also like so having menopause very early is a sign of like faster biological aging, and having it later is a typically sign of slower biological aging. And being able to have children, in your 40s is usually a sign of being healthier,
Mm.
essentially.
Mhm. Is there any how to say advice? Because I see that you have a lot of kind of call it like scientific or medicinal researches. Like, is there any link of living longer when people are what's the word? I know vegetarian, but then the other one who's eating meat,
Mm.
how do you call
Carnivore one.
the carnivore?
Carnivore. Yeah.
Okay. So is there a link? Because I've seen this, okay, on Netflix, so it's not very professional, but still I've seen this TV series, like where they're like, doing research and exploring like how is your quality of life like when you eat meat and you don't? Is there like any proof on this or that? What would you say? Do you eat meat
Right.
yourself?
Yeah, I'm like an omnivore. So,
Yeah, same here. Yeah.
yeah, so well, in observational studies, for sure, you'll see quite often that more plant-based diets are associated with reduced risk of heart disease and all-cause mortality and cancer and
Okay.
those things.
Mm.
But again, like I mentioned earlier, it could be because of this people who would eat more plant-based are more health conscious and they're exercising as well and kind of
More.
eating a better diet overall.
Yeah.
Now, the studies do control for a lot of these factors, so they try to statistically exclude those effects to see the pure effects of only like a plant-based diet, and they still find benefits. Now, how robust it is depends, yeah, like how much you believe in observational studies. The observational studies usually are used, they're not like that they're the truth, like the scientists
I
just
understand.
decide the food guidelines and recommendations based on the observational studies,
Yeah.
which is like a misconception. A lot of people think that.
That's for sure.
Yeah, well, but the scientists use the observational studies to do like randomized controlled trials in the future, which are more like controlled for, and then they will try to make some more broader conclusions based on that. So the observational studies aren't, yeah, like this is 100% truth and that's it. Uh, but still, even then, like in some of these randomized controlled trials, they still find that plant-based intakes or diets typically result in better cardiometabolic risk factors, so like lower cholesterol, lower triglycerides, lower blood sugar, and lower inflammation, and those kind of things. So there's that. So there are certainly benefits to eating like a plant-heavy diet. Do you have to be like completely meat-free and animal protein-free? Also depends a lot on which doctor or scientist you ask. So meat intakes in observational studies, at least like processed meat intake for sure, is associated with higher risk of heart disease and mortality. With unprocessed and natural meats, the association is either like neutral or it's not like usually associated with like a similar outcomes as plant-based proteins or plant-based diets. So yeah, it's just like very hard to do these kind of studies and make any
I can imagine.
conclusions from them. You can only like, okay, try to guesstimate it based on how it affects someone's blood markers in a short time period in a randomized controlled trial and then make conclusions. Okay, they saw that their cholesterol decreased more, so okay, over the course of decades it might correlate with a lower risk of heart disease. But again, there's might be some genetic differences and those
Mm.
kind of things there also. But generally, like, eating plenty of plants is healthy for you. Eating like unprocessed animal proteins is also like, I wouldn't say that it necessarily increases your risk of heart disease and mortality. There's a lot of other factors at play. I think diet itself, yes, it matters, but it's not the most important thing. Like the most important thing is to make sure that you're not overweight and maintain normal blood markers, and you can achieve that with quite a lot of different diets out there, if that makes sense.
Hmm. Yeah, well, I can hear you saying that, if I understood it correctly, that you do not have to be, what's the word? Like, no, obsessed with that. Because sometimes we people, especially I believe women, we're like, we want to reach the maximum, to be the best moms, the best employees, the best, have the best body, do the most amount of workouts. And then I think the problem becomes about this craziness, So I guess balance is the key. Well,
Mm.
maybe you, Sim, could say like, if I had to choose, if I had to prioritize, what would you advise where to go and to put your focus on? I know that the whole package is perfect, but let's say maybe pay attention to your nutrition, or maybe it's more important to, do some weights. What would you say? What would you advise to a friend if he wants to start taking better care of himself in terms of, living
Mm.
longer and better life?
Yeah, I think the biggest transformation for your body and your health would come from resistance training. So,
Mm-hmm.
like, you could go on some different diets, you might lose some fat, you might uh, improve your blood markers as well with the diets, but you stay pretty much the same body. But with
Mm-hmm.
resistance training, you're literally transforming your body, like you increase lean muscle tissue and you increase bone density. So these are more like more permanent changes that stick around for a lot longer. So having higher muscle mass, increases metabolic rate, so you're able to burn more calories without even doing anything. It also
Mm.
increases your insulin sensitivity. You're able to eat more carbohydrates while maintaining normal blood sugar. It increases bone density, which we talked about, that it matters a lot when you're older. So these are more permanent changes that
Hmm.
aren't achievable with any diet. So it doesn't matter what diet you eat. If you don't lift weights, you're not going to really see a significant increase in bone density or muscle mass. So, and a lot of people just don't do it. It's, muscle strengthening activities have become slightly more popular over the last, 10 years.
Yeah.
But the average person, still might not do it, but it's certainly one of the most transformational things for your body.
Yeah, I can hear that because I hear still the tendency that, you have to do the cardio, like to burn
Mm,
fat, like to run or to, I don't know, bike or cycle and stuff. But I hear from what you're saying that, the muscle strength, since it's reducing really rapidly after such an age. So this
mm,
is the thing which we have to catch, right? And to put into its
right.
place.
Yeah, well, cardio certainly matters as well. Like
Mm.
the research is that if you do only resistance training, then yes, your mortality risk decreases something like 21%. But if you do resistance training plus cardio, then it's up to like 40% reduction. So doing both is better than just doing one alone, whether that one be cardio or weights.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And if, let's say, I do not want to work out or I don't want to do weights, like I do believe in, long walks. What's your opinion? What's your take on that? Because I know it's not a workout, but just movement and you
Hmm.
get fresh air and your heart rate a little bit increases at the moment. And if you do like, I don't know, 2 hours, like you can do, I don't know, 15 kilometers, 13 kilometers. What's your take on that?
Yeah, walking is very good. Like it's underrated. It's not very intense. You can do it for many hours, and it's kind of reduces stress as well. And it's, yeah, very beneficial. I think getting, or at least based on the research, like 8,000 steps a day
Yeah.
already provides a lot, pretty significant reduction in risk of heart disease and mortality. But up to like 16,000, it provides much less benefits. Like going from 8 to 16,000 provides only like 5% benefits, whereas going from 2,000 to 8,000 provides up to like 60% reduction in risk.
Mm-hmm. So small steps again, correct?
Mm,
Especially for the people who are like, have not been moving at all. Like, the only movement they do is like car and couch, couch and
mhm.
car. Yeah, there's still
Yeah.
people who live like that. And I really want to, how to say, inspire them, go for a walk or like take a walk instead of a bus or something.
Yeah.
Um, there's this huge topic, supplements, and I know that we will not dive into that because it will take like 25 hours. But still, apart all these basics like vitamin D, which is like all of us in the Baltic states and Nordic states are always have deficiency, like omega-3. Is there anything else which even without the blood tests and proper analysis, we should be taking, like how to say, taking, yeah,
Mm.
and using to have a better quality of our lives? Or there's none, such as, you should not do that without tests.
I think most people would benefit from like magnesium
Mm-hmm.
because it's very common deficiency, and a lot of foods are low in magnesium as well because of like pesticides and soil
Yeah.
erosion. So even if you have like a very balanced and healthy diet, even then you might be missing a little bit of magnesium. So I think using at least like 200, some more people might need 400 milligrams a day. That's like a good insurance policy. Another one, I think, well, technically, like everyone would benefit from whether or not they want it. It's a different story, but it's a collagen that
Mm-hmm.
collagen content in the skin already starts decreasing in your 20s.
Mm.
And, this is mostly related to like skin aesthetics and facial aging. So collagen peptides have been shown in these clinical trials to improve wrinkles and elasticity.
Yeah.
So yeah, like as early as in your 20s already would be beneficial to take like 10 grams of a collagen peptides per day. And another one that is also, I also think is worthwhile is omega 3s. So
Mm-hmm.
higher omega-3 index, which measures the amount of omega-3 fats, EPA, DHA in your red blood cells, the higher the index, the lower the risk of heart disease, Alzheimer's, and all-cause mortality. So, yeah,
Hmm.
unless you're eating a lot of fish every day, then chances are you
Oh.
would benefit from some omega-3 supplements.
Hmm.
And lastly, I think what I like and a lot of people aren't talking about is glycine. So it's
Glycine.
one.
Haven't heard this name.
Mm. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it's an amino acid that you get from collagen. So like 30% of collagen is
I
glycine.
see. Okay.
And glycine, yeah, it's important for collagen synthesis, but it's also important for glutathione synthesis, which is this antioxidant in the body. It's also for creatine synthesis that's used for exercise. And glycine will help to balance one of these. There's another amino acids, methionine, which you get from muscle meat. So
Yes.
high methionine intake or high methionine levels in animals are linked to shorter lifespans, and restricting methionine intake extends the lifespan. But the reason for that is because of the balance with glycine. So if you get enough glycine, then you don't see the life shortening effects in animal studies. So a lot of people are eating muscle meat, but they're not eating a lot of glycine from their diet. So glycine you get from these collagenous tendons and ligaments and skins and
Mhm.
those kind of bone broth, those things. So just supplementing with some glycine will fix that. And low glycine levels are also associated with this visceral fat, so the fat around the organs.
Yeah,
And excess methionine intake is also associated with visceral fat. So fixing the balance will reduce visceral fat around the organs as well.
I see. I have this beautiful question about healthy sexual life. Does it have any relation in a part that it's pleasurable and fun, but does it influence our span of life or quality of life or
Mm.
both?
Yeah, for sure. Like there's the mental health component and the relationship component. So healthier relationships, especially in older age, are linked to longer life, and sexual activity is also typically associated with reduced risk of many chronic diseases.
Hmm.
But again, it might be like, is it because, if you're having more sex, are you just having better physical health overall? So
Yeah,
especially in later years. So if you're like being able to have sex when you're 70 and 80, then, you know, yes, there might
that
be
means, yeah.
direct health benefits from that, but it could also be that you're otherwise healthier than other people, and therefore you live longer. So yeah, for sure, like sex has health benefits for sure.
Hmm. And the last question, Sim, for you, very personal. You having all this information and knowing all these things, and I follow you on Instagram, so I see what you do. You went to this clinic to do all this like zillion, gazillion amount of, blood test markers and everything. So, how long will you live? And what do you do to do that? What is your personal hack? I hope you will say at least one for us.
Uh, yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like, it also depends a lot on what kind of discoveries we will make in the next few decades
Hmm.
about longevity. So, there's the idea that after 2040, we will be able to like solve aging and we'll be able to live for, hundreds of years. But, so far it's our current is very theoretical. We don't have like any steps towards that are meaningful. Let's say on a current time span, I think probably I would be able to, yeah, like something at late 80s, 90s, I think is reasonable or possible. If there's going to be more advancements, then it could be even higher. But yeah, I mean, it comes down to just being proactive about it, I guess. No, of course, you can't escape your genetics, at least currently without the gene editing, because, longevity has a pretty big genetic component. I don't have any like exceptional genetics. My grandfather died to cancer when he was like 36. Um, so yeah, like it's hard to say. Based on like my lifestyle activity and like my conscientiousness about health, it could be like 80s, 90s, but who knows what the genetics what
Yeah.
has. Um, yeah, what I do about it, I just exercise regularly. I sleep 7 to 8 hours. I eat like a Mediterranean style diet.
Yeah.
I kind of try to keep stress low, get my blood markers optimized,
Do you
and
meditate?
no, not at
Just
the moment.
curious. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Okay. And the last but not least question, do you eat desserts?
uh, yeah, for sure. Like, I don't think it's prohibited, or it's like it's not going to be harmful in moderation. So
Hmm.
like,
Thanks for saying that.
yeah, if you have like a little bit of desserts or cake every once in a while, then as long as your like blood markers are fine and you're not becoming too overweight, then it's fine.
Yeah, well, thank you, Sim, so much for your
Mhm.
answers. It was very rich. And well, see you soon in Lithuania by the end of the month at the Sleep Fest.
Yes, I'll see you there.
Yeah. This was Magnetic Conversations. Bye.
Bye bye.